All right, then. Well, we'll go back to the formal since we do have Elisa Robinson, who has just joined us. Okay, are we ready to go? Nicole, I'm ready to get started here.
Yes, let me get the PowerPoint, the PDF up.
Or
I'm a little under weather, so I apologize if I sound nasally, but we'll get through it.
Okay, all right. Well, why don't we first start with good morning and welcome to each of you. And okay, just a minute. Are we ready to? Okay, you've got it up the agenda. All right, here we go. Okay. Good morning, welcome. And just wanted to share with you that this is our normal meeting for outreach and community engagement. And let's set the table. We do have a member from the public, and we'll set the table for you with some housekeeping. For those of you, or for you at this point, please keep your participation on the mute button. If you're going to be via phone, use *6 to unmute, and then *6 to mute yourself again. And we will first hear comments from our standing committee first, followed by comments from Alyssa or anybody else in the public. The purpose of CAB, the purpose of OCEC is to assist CAB in gathering and providing information that is kind of crucial to CAB doing its job. Some of our responsibilities are to identify outreach methods to engage the community, and I think our committee has done a decent job in doing that. We're also here to improve public access to information regarding realignment. In addition, we are here to provide membership cultivation and succession planning. And boy, do we need that. And I think we've done a decent job with what we've done in interviewing the individuals that have come before us. And finally here, we'd love to nurture this CAB's ambassador program, which is on our agenda today. So we should have some interesting comments there. And I guess this, from my personal viewpoint, I'm really grateful for the people that attend. Doggone it, Dale, you're not a committee member, but you might as well be. Kenya, for your leadership last year. Mark, for your participation. And Scott, you're just joining us, so look out. So,
okay.
So, hey, all I can say is beware. So why don't we get going here, and let's go to our introductions. Let's do introductions for those for OCEC first. I'm Crawford Carpenter. I'm a CAB member. Let's turn it to Nakenya.
Good morning, everybody. I am Nakenya, and I am also a CAB member.
Let's turn it over to Mark.
Hello, I'm Mark Thomas. I'm in East County, and I'm a CAB member.
Thank you, Mark. And then finally, Scott.
Yes, I'm Scott Persons. I'm representing Central County, but actually the whole county. It's just I'm a resident in Central County.
I like that. Okay, and let's go to the staff. Nicole.
I'm Nicole Popchak, and with the Office of Reentry and Justice and staff to CAB.
And Elisa.
Good morning, all. Elisa Robinson with the Office of Supervisor Diane Burgess.
Ah, okay. So nice to have you. Let's now move. Are there any announcements? Let's go to, are there any announcements from either Nicole or Elisa?
No.
Okay, geez, we're moving along. Let's go to item number 2 on the agenda, and that would be public comment. Is there any public comment on any item under the jurisdiction of the Community Advisory Board or this committee that is not on the agenda? Wow, we're easy.
And I can't see the hands because I'm sharing my screen, Crawford. So if you,
Yeah, I don't see any hands. No, okay, we're in good shape. Then let's move to item number 3. Could we just take a minute here or less? And we're looking for approval of the minutes from our May 3rd special meeting for OCEC. That would be attachment 1, pages 4 to 6. Hopefully you've read those and we can ask for a motion to approve.
Yeah, I'll move that we approve the minutes from our special meeting on May 5th, correct? May 3rd.
May 3rd. Thank you, Scott. Do we have a second?
Yes, Mark Thomas, I second.
Thank you, Mark. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion or comment from the public? May we call the vote, please, Nicole?
Crawford,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Nikenya,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Darn. Okay, let's move on. This is,
Oh, we're
This
gonna
is
have some
good.
items that get deep, so just hang on.
okay, I was getting ready to say, yeah, the stuff will hit the fan here in a few minutes. Let's move to item number 4. Standing item here, this is on our membership status. Before we look at this, Nicole, I need a little guidance from you. I think we're at the point where we can ask from those of us that are on this, standing committee to see if we should approach the situation where we should select a chair. And now, does the committee do that first and then make a recommendation to the full board? How would you suggest we handle
So
that?
the committee chairs are handled at the full board. And I think that we had decided that we would wait until June, because we weren't quite ready for last Thursday to have that conversation for this subcommittee. And that we would have that as an agenda item on the June 9th general meeting.
Okay, now how does that work? I thought the committee members nominated, then they were approved by the full board. Am I mistaken?
Not the subcommittee chair. People either self-nominate for chair for a subcommittee, either self-nominate or others nominate at the full body, and then they accept the nomination. Vice chair is different. Vice chair and recorder, the person who takes kind of the report out notes,
Okay,
is
got it.
all handled inside the subcommittee itself.
Understand then. Okay, so we wait till our next meeting and we'll see what we can
In
do
June.
for a chair.
But I
Excellent.
would encourage those that are interested, obviously Crawford is looking to transition, that they, you have enough people on this board now that one person can, and this subcommittee can talk to you privately without breaking the Brown Act, so.
Okay, fine then. And most important, I'm not trying to take a hike on this committee. This is where my heart is and this is where I started. But I've got some other things I've got to really get to, and believe it or not, one of them is working with Dale. Dale and I have a project that we got to get to. So it's just a matter of, having the time and the bandwidth. And Dale and I have quite a project that's going to really take some time, and we need to get to that because that's appropriate for our the other 2 standing committees. So it's kind of important. So we'll wait till the next meeting. That'll be an agenda item. Thank you so much for the guidance, Nicole.
Of course.
Let's move now. The next item on our agenda, I think applications. We don't really have any applications at this particular meeting, but I want to say thank you to the committee members here for the decision to have that special meeting that we had last week or so. Because that was really great, because what we're able to do is assist in getting our complement of total CAB board members up to where it should be. And to me, that makes our task a heck of a lot easier when we have a full complement of members. If by chance somebody leaves, then we can transition very quickly so that we have a full board. So again, thank you for doing what you did previously.
I do have one call out before you move forward on this specific item.
Yes.
You know, Reverend Julius Van Hook was not present at the general meeting, but the recommendation was to nominate him just based on his interview and his reputation in the community that people had spoke about. I have not gotten confirmation from him that he is on board. So I know that he came to the interview here, but he hasn't responded to my emails. So maybe Crawford, you might want to give him a call and just confirm that he is still interested in joining the board and serving on CAB.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
No,
Just, you know, we didn't have that confirmation because he wasn't there at the general meeting, but there was a mishap and some folks didn't know they had to be, it wasn't necessarily required, but highly recommended for them to be there. And he was one of the individuals that was not able to be there. But the next step, right, is we're going to go to the June 3rd CCP to get them fully appointed, right? And I'll be looking for like a little biography from all three of them. So I will be reaching out to all three of them for that purpose. But it might be worth you as the chair reaching out to Reverend Van Hook.
okay. I get concerned now. Did you said you reached out to him via email
Yes.
as well as you called?
I don't know if I left a voicemail message, but yes, I did call him a couple times and I've emailed him a couple times and I have not.
Okay, see, that sends me a message right now that,
He is a very busy individual in the community.
well, but that's not my problem. My problem, hey, our concern is OCEC and CAB. If he's so busy in the community that he can't return a phone call or respond to an email, is he really going to be effective in our mission? I think that's the question that we've got to ask him.
Yeah. So my
Okay.
recommendation would stand that you might want to reach out to him and as the chair of the board to see if you get a response. I would be hesitant to push him to the CCP on June 3rd, which is just right around the corner, without even a confirmation that they are still beyond showing up for the interview here on the 3rd of May, that they're still interested. So.
All right.
Just my call out there. We can talk offline, but I want to.
Yes. Okay, I'll be rather straightforward because we don't want to get into a predicament where we have somebody taking up a seat, they don't participate, and we have others that are raring and ready to go. So thank you. You and I can talk offline, but I made some notes here.
Okay.
Okay, fine. All right, good. Are we to the next item, which is item number 5, the diversity survey?
Did you want me to provide some context here?
Yes, if you would provide context, and then hopefully we can get comments from Nakenya, Mark, and Scott, and then at the end, I have a comment about it. So do you want to start then, please, for context, Nicole?
I don't have the full context historical reference of how this diversity survey came about, but essentially what it's doing is it's wanting to poll the current members of the body to get a sense of how balanced we are in regards to experience and region where they're located, or whether it's work or residency, They do also ask questions about, and I'll just kind of walk you through here, what region they are, how they, their gender identity, how they identify, if they're identified as a member of the LGBTQ community, if they identify as Hispanic or Latinx, and the racial identity or national origin. And let's see, if this is a conflict of interest question, asking if there's some financial interest in an organization that receives direct or indirect AB 109 funding, true or false. And then this is a laundry list of experience that, and again, I don't know the historical reference of how they came up with these specific knowledge areas or buckets of experience, but it's quite long. And basically the board member would check box which ones apply to them. And I think that's the last question. Yeah.
Okay, why don't we start with, we'll go in seniority. Nakenya, any comments, additions, deletions, or just plain comments? Floor is yours, Nakenya.
Thank you, Crawford. So I was going over it. I thought it was a little long, but I'm trying to pull it up on another screen here so that I could look at it. But I mean, we discussed it last year, I believe. And we were talking about, like Nicole said, the need for, to understand our diversity. I thought, it was a little bit much, but I am interested in hearing what other people have to say about it. Obviously we know why we should know about the diversity and the balance that is needed on any committee. So that part is understandable. We have to do these kinds of things just to make sure that, people aren't excluded just by culture. But I thought it was a little long, but I'd be interested in seeing what other people thought.
Okay, thank you, Nakenya. Mark?
I don't have any comment at this moment. I'm still I'm looking it over.
Okay, fine, thank you. Scott, any comments?
Sure. I looked it over in detail, and kind of like Nakenya, I felt it was a little lengthy maybe, and I guess I didn't understand why there was like a question for, do you identify as Hispanic or Latin? And then you go to the next page, what is your racial identity and national origin? I guess what I would have maybe expected is for 4 and 5 to have been, kind of consolidated somehow. And if I'm missing something, that's please bring it to my attention, because this is as much a question as a comment. And do you identify yourself as a member of LGBTQ community? That one, I guess, just kind of surprised me slightly, because I don't, let's pretend that I do, and I don't in this case, but if I do and I don't want to make mention of it, I only have yes or no. So I'm kind of being put on the spot to talk about my orientation on a survey that isn't real pivotal to our mission. That's just my observation. But I'm not offended by it at all.
Thank you. Yes, that's a fair comment. Can we circle back? So wait, let me go to Dale to see if he has any comments, then we'll circle back to you, Mark, if you have some. So Dale, next, please. Dale, you're on mute.
Yeah, excuse me. I
Oh,
I had left full screen here and pulled up the agenda and that item. I was looking at it. I don't, I'm wondering why the LG, whatever it is, I'm wondering what the purpose of that question is. And I agree with Scott. I don't see a need for number 4. If you could, Nicole, if you could go back up.
Can I answer that really quick, if that's okay, Nicole?
Yeah. What question number? Go ahead, Kenya.
number,
Okay, first of all, I found my whole situation.
oh, look at you.
But so when it comes to those kinds of questions, just like with race, it's really important because these are demographics that actually get excluded. So unfortunately, they have to make sure that the people who are, that's a whole nother community. So, I mean, if we're asking about race, then yeah, the LGBTQ plus is also a community. So it's, they would also be considered individuals that that are accounted for in these kinds of spaces and will contribute to the diversity. So yeah, if people are comfortable with, being, a part of the community or not, it's completely up to them. But I think for the purposes of this meeting and for the purposes of diversity, those are the kinds of, they are also necessary. So I
Okay,
hope that makes sense. If you have any other
Yeah.
questions, because I do feel like a lot of the times people don't realize like that's a culture. That's like an entire community in all different communities.
yeah,
And to get excluded if they're not like the status quo. So that is definitely an important question to have on there if we're asking about what people's races
okay.
are.
Yeah, that makes sense. But since it's optional, we wouldn't know numbers wise, because someone could maybe choose not to answer that um, for whatever reason. And so they would not be in the counting. But I understand what you're saying, Kenya, and I appreciate that. I'm wondering, what do you think about number 4? Do you identify as Hispanic or Latinx? Because below in 5, you can choose those things. So is there a particular reason why number 4 should be there? Since number 5, I think, includes those areas.
I know Lisa has her hand up. She might be able to answer some of these questions. I wanted to give her an opportunity.
Oh, yeah.
Just a couple of observations. I'm relatively new to the Justice Committee world. It's only my 2nd month. But it was either earlier this month or late last month. There was a presentation on race and pretty much, or diversity, and specifically looking at race and gathering data. And there was a recommendation from the presenter on how to gather that information. I'm trying to look through my notes to reference it now, but I haven't found it yet. When I do, if it's after the meeting, Nicole, could I send it to you?
Was that the Racial Justice Oversight Full Body that they did Burns Institute did a presentation on?
Yes.
Yeah, I have that PowerPoint. I can definitely forward it to this group if that's what you're referencing.
Yes, that's what I'm referencing.
Um,
And the other one was backing up what Nakenya said on, as this is a diversity survey, it is important to gather the data on LGBTQAI+. There's a lot of letters in that one. So that you can make sure that that people that are identify as that are represented in this space as well. So I was just agreeing with Nakenya on that one.
Are there funding issues at times that would be important to have the LGBTQ people known?
I don't think that from my experience, it hasn't been a funding issue, but
Uh-huh.
when you're serving the full community, you want to make sure that those that are being served or not being served have the opportunity to speak up.
Sure.
Mark?
Oh, I was looking at the question about 4 and 5. And what I understand is you can be Hispanic and you can also be of African descent or European descent, or you could be like Native American. So it's two separate things that people can do. You often see that on some surveys like non-Hispanic white, Hispanic white, and things like that. I'm not saying it's the best way to do it, but that's how it's kind of related to region and language versus being a descendant of whatever continent. So that's why it's in a way two separate things, as far as I
Ah.
understand.
Ah,
Okay, Scott, your hand is up.
Yeah, so this has been helpful to hear everyone's comments. It raises another question for me. Is this a survey that is, once you've been approved for the board, that as a board member you complete?
Yes,
Or is it part of an application process?
it is after you're on the board. What I've seen since I've been here is in January, this goes out every January, and the results are presented to the full body just to kind of see where the board is at. That's the extent of where I've seen the results go. It doesn't go any further than that.
Okay, so I guess with that said, and I appreciate all of these comments because it helps raise my awareness and education on this. I've been also out of the workplace for 3 years, and the world has changed a lot in 3 years. So this is helping me to learn some things that have been recognized more in the last 3 years than maybe my experience with the Fed. So this is all good. I guess what I would say then, if this is an important focus, that for sure for this committee, when we recruit, we should be keeping these things in mind too, right? And are they also enumerated somewhere else in like our recruiting mission?
So I have a comment about that because we brought this up in our application because we do ask not all these questions, but some of the questions about, I think number 5. And when I talked to county council, if you look at the board application for MADI bodies, like the Racial Justice Oversight Body or Measure X or some of the other bodies, they have one application for all of that process, and they do not ask any of these questions. And when I had talked to county council, they said that it can become a legal issue in asking these questions from a recruitment standpoint. I don't have all the historical background of exactly why they can or cannot, but especially obviously with jobs and stuff like that. But
I can, if you, when you're done, I could weigh in on that, Nicole.
yeah. So when I shared the CAB application with county council, they highly recommended making it optional. So bringing this back and making it required, I think that might be an issue. And maybe even Elisa might be able to speak to some of this working for a board of supervisor. But
Right.
I think if we do bring it back, we would definitely want to bring this to county council to make sure that we're checking our balances in how we present it. Go ahead, Nikenya.
Thank you. So I don't work for the county, but I can tell you, like, as far as like the culture is concerned, and climate, it's a known fact that when people who are not, let's say, culturally diverse, they are specific with people that they're picking. So they'll see a name, they'll see a race, they'll see anything that will exclude the group from their, place. That's when it becomes a legal issue. So unfortunately, I understand why once you're here to know that for information so that we could, kind of generally, let we could see the diversity on the panel for people that are there. But when you're applying to something and you have to be that specific about your race or gender identity, like it's a known fact. Like a lot of those applications get thrown in the garbage, and it's like, oh, sorry, I didn't know you were there. So I mean, unfortunately, they want it removed off of that so that it's not a issue as much as it has been. Just, you give people an actual opportunity to show up and get an interview. And, in a lot of cases, if they did not do that, and if a place remains culturally tone deaf, then people tend to get used to seeing what they see, the type of people, the type of language. And, not only do they not grow, but it's actually harmful to other demographics when you have establishments like that.
Okay.
We have
Bill?
Dale's hand up.
Yeah, Nicole, you said the county council indicated optional on some things. So this category here, it is not, we don't need to have the word optional there.
I'm not sure. This is a survey that, like I said, goes to CAB members and then it's presented to CAB, and that's as far as it goes. I don't believe the survey itself has been brought to the attention of county council,
Oh, yeah.
but the application, the CAB application has.
Okay.
Lisa?
Alyssa, I think your
think-
hand was up.
Yes. Continuing on what Nakenya said, making it inclusionary versus exclusionary. So you are able to have a pool of applicants at the beginning where it's open to everyone, whether you're narrowing it down to be inclusive of specific members that you're looking for, or whether you don't want to discriminate intentionally or unintentionally against anybody that applies. It's important to leave that application process open. And this survey process is part of the reporting on who's actually on the board and who's represented there by the members that are present. As far as my understanding.
Yes.
Thank you, Alyssa. Are there any other comments? Okay, let me just go over, because I wrote one or two comments, if I can add this to the group. My concern was with number 3. I just want to make sure we are not being intrusive. That is my concern.
Mhm.
And I don't want to be intrusive to anybody or any community. So I just wanted to mention that. Nakenya, Alyssa, hopefully you've lessened my fears for being intrusive. So that comment on number 3. And then I had a comment, is there a way, or might we be better served combining 4 and 5 in some way, or is 4 so much different from number 5 that we have to have a 4 and a 5?
They're different. So like
Okay.
Mark was saying, I know people from Brazil, but originally from Africa. So they are Afro-Latinas. So, and then it's not the same. So this is like when you break down cultures, there is no generality that, when you generalize it and it becomes tone deaf, because that could be offensive to someone who is, originally from Africa, but like was living in Brazil. They're considered Afro-Latinas. So we can't
Okay.
get rid of who they are and just slap a Latina sign on them. So that's our Latinx sign on them. So that's, again, I think these questions, you have to ask you have to understand the demographics of these different individuals and understand their culture, so that that would be offensive to them You know, so it's not really like what we feel, or like we feel uncomfortable
Understand.
asking that. Just like with the LGBTQ plus question, not everybody is, you know, hiding their identity. A lot of people are proud, you know, pride.
Right.
So those people will be happy to, you know, make their presence known. We can't assume that, oh, if we are going to offend somebody, we have to remove that. But once you understand culture and diversity, you don't have to worry too much about offending anybody. So this is what this does. It makes you need to grow, you know, and understand the dynamics of other people rather than expecting them to, you know, just fit into little boxes. I hope that makes sense.
Yes, oh no, I'm fine. And can we still stay on number 4 there? I read an article maybe 3-4 months ago. And to my surprise, maybe we need to expand number 4. In that article, they talked about distinctions between Hispanic, Latino, Latina, or the Latinx, Chicano, and Mexican. That those are all different you know, types of variations that people may want to be recognized, and even Mexican American, just as you would have Black American or whatever. So I just wanted to share, you know, that particular comment. I don't know whether we just leave it the way it is. Are we trying to be too politically correct, or maybe we need to be? But somebody needs to, maybe we need to take a look, because we did not include the Chicano community or the Mexican community in here. And we're assuming that they're part of the Hispanic and Latinx community, which many consider them not to be part of. According to this article, it was an extensive article on identification. So just those comments. And I had one final comment. When you go to item 7, can you scroll down to item 7, please? I saw just a whole lot of items that, you know, are appropriate to CAB. And I started looking at each one of them, and to my dismay, I can't check any of them. And then my question is, could we have maybe another category, or add one that would say just a concerned citizen? And I just throw that out to the group, because if you ask me, I can't fill that out.
Are you in
I
your,
don't have any special skill or knowledge in those areas.
so I don't work for any of these either. And I maybe like I've worked for the homeless shelter, but I mean, having knowledge on them or experience on them doesn't necessarily mean it's been a career. So that's the way that I took it. I didn't take it as like, oh, did you actually work in these areas, or actually have a family member that you worked with in these areas? Like, if you
Can you go back to the
about
top there? Because look what the question says, though.
I believe I have significant experience and knowledge concerning each of the following. So if I am familiar with these things, then yes, I believe I have significant experience with it. It doesn't mean that I don't see anything about career. Is that what you're like connecting it to?
Oh, no, I'm not at all. That's not, I'm saying I can't check any, I don't have any significant, can you go back to the title? You got to read. I don't have any significant experience or knowledge concerning any of these. That's what I'm getting at. You know, you're asking us to fill those out. Some other members here may have. I don't have significant experience.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but okay.
And that's why I asked, could we add a column, just a concerned citizen? Because that's really all I was and continue to be.
I would say community organizing. You've been doing that for the last year and a half.
Yeah, but I don't have any
Legislative
experience.
advocacy.
Yeah, but I don't have any experience in doing, you know, well, all of that's by the seat of my pants, so.
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys need to think about what the purpose of this is
Yeah,
before getting locked into the questions. Like, what is the goal of the survey itself? If it's just to pull the cab members and then inform cab, and that's as far as it goes, there's no action being taken. How helpful is this in the way that it's currently drafted? Unfortunately, I don't know, again, why this came about, or
yeah.
I don't know if other boards do this. But I do know on the application process, this is not on the applications. And if it is, it's optional.
Okay. Now, I was just wondering why do we need to know all of, well, I guess you need to know, well, even if you know this and somebody can't attend a meeting, be it for OCEC, or they can't attend a budget meeting, or they can't do policy and programs, then what good does it do us? And
Right.
yeah, I'm just wondering, do we need number 7?
I think this goes back to showcasing the diversity of the members of CAB and just showing the breadth of experience, interest, and knowledge that's present. So that's why from my understanding, that's why the question is there. And just Crawford, one thing is like, we've been doing this for a year and a half, and it might be by the seat of your pants, but that still gives you that experience. Because we know that experience is gained in a number of ways throughout our lives, not just through like formal education or training. So just doing the work, that can count as experience. But it seems like it shouldn't be like, is it possible to add the category that he's talking about as far as just interested citizen to make sure that this is inclusive of everybody that's present?
Definitely, that's easy to do.
Okay, well, those were just my comments. Now, where do we want to go then as a standing committee with what we've done? We've gone through it. We've got comments. Should we go back to number 3 and start there and say, yes, this is a go, and thank you, Nakenya and Alyssa. Number 3, we're going to leave that in there because it's the right thing to do. Then we move on. What were the other areas? Number 4, what are we going to do with number 4? Just leave it as is? Or are we going to expand it? What's the pleasure of the standing committee?
Can you ask that again, please? I wasn't able to really.
On item number 3, I think there was consensus that we'll leave item number 3 there. Because of your comments and Alyssa's comments, it should be there. Is there a disagreement with leaving that in there?
Oh, okay. Yes.
Okay, then let's go to number 4. Do we want to leave that as is?
Yes, it belongs.
Yeah, but do we want to, but what about those who consider themselves to be Chicano? or
Yeah, I
Mexican
would
American?
have you, I've never heard a Chicana not, identify with the Latinx community. So I don't know what article you're talking about. Yeah, I would, if I were you, I would consult a Chicana. But
Well-
it's also the same, like these are subcategories of this, of Hispanics, or what we would umbrella it as. Again, culture and kind of understanding what those dynamics are. If you just highlight the Chicanas out of like everybody, then you have to understand how I would suggest for you and others on this committee who are unclear about how culture works and how people, in different cultures identify themselves. I would do more than just one article, because, they're not always as accurate as they need to be. And just because, maybe that one person don't identify or whatever, that may not have anything to do with the entire community. So I would definitely double check that This is to me an appropriate question, and it will include Chicanas.
See, the whole point of the article was a person such as me or you saying that I should consider myself to be Hispanic or Latinx when I am not. I am Chicano or I am Mexican. Others are determining who I should be and what area I should be in. That was the point of the article that I read.
Okay, I mean, I would read more articles. I would definitely probably double read that just in case the person was making another statement. It sound, and that didn't necessarily say,
Well, I could almost counter that with the person that said Hispanic and Latinx, maybe they need to read more articles and find out there's more diversity than what they think is.
well,
out
I mean, okay, let me
there.
just, so the Latinx community, right? That will include like different nations, right? I guess outside of Spain. So there, I mean, they have completely different cultures within there, right? And I guess if you don't get it, then you'll just assume that everybody is just like one thing, or there's like, it's complicated. And so this is why I always stress for other people to kind of do their own work to make sure that they are understanding what these things are, or else it becomes like this really kind of drawn out. Like if I was let's say if I was the only Latinx person here, I'm not, but I mean, if I had to explain this every single 5 minutes, I would be irritated. So I think that that's kind of the issue when it comes to culture too, like being aware, and also just being that awareness shows respect to other individuals. And I could say that I have heard of the Latinx, because a lot of people are, homophobic, so they don't want to add the X, but we're not going to we don't put that in there. That still isn't the overall point. So again, it's like, it's not that nitpicky. Like I said, if I were you, I would reach out to individuals who consider themselves Chicana, and on your own time, try to understand like what it is you're not understanding. Because I feel like the lack of understanding sometimes can be a burden to these groups as well, because then you have people who need to explain this and that, and that's not fair to them either, right? We don't really want to be able to, we don't want to have to explain who we are as individuals every 5 minutes. Like, it's definitely easier for other people to kind of, do some work in that area. That's what I'm trying to say. I think like I said, I've never heard a Chicana not identify as a Latinx individual. And that's, like I said, you're just speaking on one article, and that would be like, if I was like,
But
the
what
only
article are
Latinx
you
person, I'd be
speaking
looking
on
at you
that
like,
supports Hispanic and Latinx? I mean, you know what, I guess maybe what the bottom line is, what I'm trying to do is to be inclusive. And I'm not so sure that this is as inclusive as it should be.
yeah, but I don't get that. I don't get a real reason why you
Can I
don't.
interject? Can I interject really quick? Just because I see it a little bit differently. I can explain it a little bit differently. It's like breaking it down further from Latinx, Latino, and putting all the different categories in there. That would take up, if we did that for every ethnicity that's represented in the survey, that would take up a lot of time, because it can go from I'm not white, I am German. And so do we need to include the different nationalities there as well? Or I'm not Black, I am Romanian. So I think that having these larger overarching categories is standard. And it is something that it might not represent them, the full person, but there is a other option where they can fill in, what they identify as, right? So that's a kind of a different way to look at it.
Where would you, okay, so if you don't consider yourself, and I'm fine, because we're maybe taking too much time on this, but let's say I don't identify as Hispanic or Latinx, where else would I Where
There
could
should be
I
an
have that?
other. There should be an other.
Under other what? Can you just
Like
scroll down?
if it's not listed there, there should be like, I mean, there should be another category in case you
Okay, all right. Well,
identify
maybe,
as something else.
but in number 5, do we have an other? Can you scroll down on number 5?
Are you
please?
suggesting on number 4 to put an other radio button that says other, that they can actually type in?
I was
something?
looking at the broader, not the Hispanic or Latino, but
This one,
in
number
that
5?
one, yes.
Okay.
And there is one,
There
yeah.
is one. Uh-huh.
Okay, fine then. Okay, good. A lot of discussion and we had the block already for other. There we go.
Okay.
Wait a minute, 1 second. Nikinya, are you satisfied with that? We leave it alone and if I come across some of those articles, I'll send them to you and vice versa. How's that?
Okay, so I was just like typing up something in there, because for me, that is okay, but I do think that we, I just have to keep reiterating how burdensome it is when you're dealing with individuals that don't understand culture, to the people who are the group of minorities. So I would definitely make sure that if this is an area that you're not very strong in, to like step it up a little bit with different, either meeting people from those communities and or reading diverse things, not just one article and that explains everything, like that's not how this works. And it doesn't work for anybody, so we can't like allow that to be a standard for other people too. So I hear what you're saying, and but I think that it's definitely worth for the individuals who are not very savvy in this area to get a little bit more savvy.
Thank you.
We had a Mark, well, I'm sorry, Dale's hand was out for quite a long time. Just wanted to give him an opportunity to, I know he's not on the board, but I wanted to give him the opportunity to say something.
You referring to me?
Yes.
I have a question. What is the purpose of this document? Is the purpose of this document to be able to show what our diversity is on CAB, or what is the purpose of it?
I don't know the historical purpose, but all I can say is that they poll everyone in January, all the members, the current members that are voting members and alternate members, and then they share it in the full body, the results, to see what the results are, and that is the extent of it.
Yeah, I'm still wondering what is the purpose.
Well, can I answer? I'm sorry, but like for Dale, if they did this and no one was different, it was all the same person, let's say everybody here was Caucasian, they didn't identify with any of the other communities, and here we are in an area that would require some actual diversity and understanding, how things work and how people, end up in the system and how the history of it. It just wouldn't be like, I don't even know how to say that. Like it would be typical, but it wouldn't be appropriate and it wouldn't be very effective, right? So the purpose of understanding culture is to be better, not only as human beings, but if you're going to be on committees like this, to be useful to the communities.
No, I understand and appreciate that. And if the purpose is then for us to see what our diversity is or where we might be lacking so that we can recruit in an area, I'm all for that. Maybe we don't have any Asians and we would really like to hopefully recruit and at least get some, some Asians on the board. I totally support that. So that would make it worthwhile as far as I'm concerned.
Mark?
Well, at the end, I was agreeing with kind of what Dale was saying, while he was asking, it's about giving us information. And for instance, if we had many diverse people in this group, for instance, somebody who was Latinx or Hispanic, they could explain more to us the importance of it, just like when people have gender identities. It helps to have those different people around so they can inform us about what's going on and what the perspective is. The only thing I was asking about, I guess Alyssa mentioned it, what is the standard for this county? What things do they use on their forms as far as diversity goes? And what language? And is there an office that deals with diversity and stays up on what wording is appropriate to use? Is there anybody that works for the county that does that? Who draws up their forms? And maybe we can get some information to guide us.
I don't have an answer for that question. I imagine that for an internal document like this, where you are specifically looking to represent the diversity of this body, there isn't a standard way to do that as far as the county goes.
Okay.
I imagine that when we have the Office of Racial Justice up and running, that would probably be where you would look to for that information. But the presentation that they had at Nicole, was our job, right?
Uh-huh.
They gave a really great presentation on representation and best practices on how to do that and how to be inclusive. There's the video, but she also has the presentation that she can send out to this group. I recommend watching the video because the presenter was great and did a good job of explaining what can be a hard to grasp concept.
Would somebody be kind enough to send that video? I'd have interest in.
Yeah, I can send that after, because I'm staffed to our job as well. So I will
Excellent then.
I will
Okay.
send that to the group after the meeting.
Yeah,
Okay.
even though I'm not on this committee, I would love to have it too.
Of course, I can include you on that, Scott.
So I've appreciated this dialogue, and I think it's an important one that we have since we're going to be working as a group going forward. I just want to say I've never quite seen this kind of survey before like this. I've seen an incredible number of them dealing with diversity and the avoidance of creating disparate groups. This is a unique survey, and it doesn't mean because I say that I take exception to it or that I'm not worldly or understanding the value of it. I think these conversations are important for us to have. And I don't think there's, I'm not going to go out and go get educated. I'm trying to get educated right here with this list because that's what's on the agenda. And I think these have been important questions that have been asked. I'm actually prepared to approve and if there was a motion, vote for it. I just think it was important that we went down this road and had this conversation.
Can I respond to that really quickly? Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay. So for Scott, the purpose of the education outside of here is so that you're not a burden to those groups, right? I think that in our society, with the status quo, it is people get comfortable like just sitting back and having information fed to them like grapes. And it's not always appropriate. It can be offensive to other people to have to like break down their entire culture, So this is the part that I would encourage to go learn about yourself so that you're not stepping on other people's toes with being tone deaf, right? We spent a significant amount of time with me explaining demographics and subcategories of demographics. That is not something that we want to burden those demographics with every conversation. So at some point, we would have to take our responsibility to not be a burden to these other groups, right? These other groups want to, if they're here, they want to make a difference. They want to bring their skills. They don't want to spend all their time trying to help, certain people understand the subcategories of like their culture. It's, that isn't necessarily the point to this. This is supposed to be to see where the demographics are in the group. But when you get into things where you're super comfortable with other people needing to break down their subcategories, you're not really paying that much attention to how much of a, like how that's not necessarily appreciated by these people. So this is why I bring it up, because it gives you the opportunity to get a little bit more, culturally diverse in your mind. And then you could orchestrate your questions based on what it is that you know, instead of like expecting everybody else to like kind of explain themselves all the time. That's not really, to me, I know it's like typical, but it's definitely something that I believe as a country, a lot of us want to move away from, because like I said, it gets burdensome to the other people. So I hope that makes sense.
Well, thank you very much, Nikenya. I think you've enlightened all of us, so thank you. Appreciate it. And so now, what are we going to do with the document? Because we've still got to go through a PowerPoint. We've got a half hour left, and that PowerPoint is going to take us at least a half hour to go through. So what's our action on the document in front of us right now, the diversity survey? What is our action?
Maybe the recommendation is reviewing that video that I will send around after the fact and come back to this.
Fine then. Okay,
And then review it next month.
excellent. Any other comments before we move to the next agenda item? Okay, we're moving to item number 6. PowerPoint. Looking at this, I just want to make some brief comments before you call that up. And what we're looking for here would be constructive critiques, first of the slides, and then of the narrative. Please keep in mind that the narrative can be altered to fit your individual cadence or your individual approach to making presentations. These are just suggestions. So can we start, and can you put the PowerPoint up as to what we've got? And let's see how we can go through it.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, this is page 1, and this will change when we have a new chair of OCEC, and we would probably have the chair and the vice chair of OCEC on the opening slide. Can you go to the next slide, please? And this is just kind of a brief history on realignment. And what we tried to do is condense and use bullets. What would you suggest? You want to put up the bullets and then follow that up on a particular slide with the narrative, or go through all of the slides first and then come back and do the narrative? What are you comfortable with? What do you think, Nicole?
I think if we can just get through the slides
Okay.
and make sure that people are comfortable with that. As far as explaining the slides, I don't know if we're going to have time, but we will try.
And they can do their thing anyhow if they want different terminology or different phrases, etc. Okay, let's go to slide 3. And again, this is the CAB structure. You notice we start with the CAB board, then we move over to CCP, and then we go to PPC, and then we go to the Board of Supervisors. It kind of shows how everything ties together. There's a narrative naturally to go along with that. Next slide. And then I think we've got 2 or 3 slides, I think 2 slides on the purposes or the purpose and functions of CAB. You can see here to address the big picture that should stand out to you from our ambassador talking points, the advance justice reinvestment, and to provide policy and budget advocacy. Those are things that our CAB board does. Can you go to our next slide, please? And again, these are some of the things that we do, and you'll notice the very last one, that is us on this particular standing committee. Can you go to slide 6 here? Basically, this has been the investment dollars that we've used or that the county has used over the years.
For
Yeah.
community programs specifically,
Yes.
not the entire bucket. But
Yeah, pardon me, community programs, which is highlighted there at the bottom of the slide. And can you go to the, and then some of the recent work by CAB and then membership outreach development. Those on this committee should know about that. And then seeking continuous improvement for budget transparency. That's been a tremendous item that we have been fighting for, and we've seen progress. And then funding for these community programs, our CBOs, and then the advancement of effective reentry services and policy recommendations. That comes directly from our standing committee. And then that's it. Then we've asked people to get involved, when, where, etc. Okay, you can go to slide 9. And then further, we've kind of explained the application process. It's a year commitment, but hopefully 3, where you can get your applications. And at the very bottom, we put down here, anyone interested in public safety, reentry, and justice system issues, that they're encouraged to apply. And then these are the committees and the officers, or whatever you call us, the chair, the vice chair, the secretary. And then we've recognized each of the chairs of the standing committees. And then finally, next slide. And there's narrative to go along with each of those slides. Any comments?
Yeah, I looked it over at length, and I'm putting my hand down there. And I thought it was extremely well done, and it's not overloaded with text information. So I think it's one that I would certainly go before a Rotary group, and be proud to show this show. What I was doing right before the meeting started was trying to equate all the comment sheet or the notes, right, with the slides.
Mhm.
And if I was going to be giving this, I'd really want to practice to make sure I did a good job of it. But this was a great help for me, because it basically tells you all the things you want to know about CAB.
Thank you. Mark, any comments from your vantage point?
No, thank you. Good.
Okay, Nakenya. Hey, Nakenya, we've been around the block about 10 times on these doggone PowerPoints with Michael and you.
We have, yes.
And Nakenya, here's the intent is to cut the son of a gun down. So we.
Yeah, I know. That was like originally the point. I think, we can only do what we can do, Crawford.
Okay, well, again, input. What do you think? Do we need to chop it down a little bit, or are you comfortable with this, Nakenya?
I'm actually comfortable with this because I feel like we did chop it down a lot. And this came up last year. I mean,
Yes.
it was a lot at that time. I do feel like now, like we had like some language tweaks that we spoke about the last time, but ultimately, it's a lot better than it was. I think it's a lot more comprehensive and easy to digest.
Thank you. Then, oh, Nakenya, a question. Are you going to introduce us to the person that's with you?
The little person who is.
I mean, you know,
Yeah.
we've got to show that individual on the minutes.
Yes, this is Landon.
Scary.
Okay, well, hello. Good, good. All right, then. So what we can do then is, do we want now, let's go to next steps, please. Nicole, do we want to just get a copy of this? Well, everybody has a copy. Now, I think we need to go to the CAB board next.
Yeah, so I had that as a recommendation. I mean, obviously it's
Okay.
up to you guys, but to present this to, and I don't know if you want to present it, but at least provide it as one of your attachments in the report out, to have solicit feedback if they have any call outs. Otherwise, this is it. This is what
Okay.
we're going with.
Yeah,
for the year,
let's,
so.
yeah, I think that's the next step. Let's put it in front of the CAB board and let's kind of critique it again from a more global standpoint. And then let's see what what the feedback is, and then we'll know where to go from there. How's that?
Yep.
Okay, fine then. Okay. Moving to the next item on the agenda. Can we just kind of review here, kind of an overview? And for those of us on this committee, check your request. We're on item number 7 for the ambassador program. It would probably be helpful to check your individual requests here. And just kind of an FYI, in the past, those of us on this standing committee we try to be a little more flexible than the other board members because we want to assist them. We want their participation. And I know the last time I didn't exactly get what I wanted, but no problem. I tried to be flexible. And if we could maybe approach the ambassador program with that spirit, it may make things a lot easier, particularly on Nicole, who has to move everything around based on quorum, the Brown Act, etc. So that's it from my standpoint. Any comments or questions? Okay, let's go. Why don't we do our individual committee first? Why don't we start with Nakenya? We have you down as the lead for what the heck is SO?
So Sheriff's Office.
Oh, Sheriff's Office, okay.
We actually had both Mark and Nakenya had asked to be a lead in this space.
Okay.
So that's a good problem to have, right?
So no, actually, so will we be paired up with someone who has done this again? I do want to say like I said last year, like when it came to the actual kind of training and making sure that the newer individuals have the substance needed to engage, I just felt like we were terribly lacking in that. And so if we're both still new and we're leads, like I would like to be paired with one of those individuals from the actual CAB like we did before, and to make sure that, that things are still going to be professional and cohesive and consistent. So if you have 2 new people doing it, I didn't think it was a good idea last year. I don't think it's a good idea this year. I do think we need to.
Well, you guys are in your second year, so you guys are actually more of an alumni than.
But not really, because last year we were just thrown into it. And
Right.
I felt like the person who had been here the longest did the most talking. And that was because we were there for a specific reason. I would still appreciate some effort in training in that. Thank you.
Okay. Nakenya, just to share with you, Ozzy and I were both new last year and we did DA Becton. And what we did is it took us about maybe an hour. We took the original talking points and we broke it down so that there was a script where we decided Ozzy would lead off, then she would turn it over to me, and we were following that script, but we kind of altered that and it went very, very smoothly. And then I was with Jonte and we did one of the Board of Supervisors, and we did the same thing. We took the original script and then we tweaked it just a little bit so that what you just commented on is that the lead person did the most talking. That's not the way Ozzy and I did it. We made sure that there was equal, and Ozzy would hand it off to me. I'd hand it back to Ozzy, and then Ozzy. So I'm just saying maybe.
Yeah, in my case, I think I did have like one of those emergencies, so I needed to leave. So I wasn't, and before it, I was trying to connect with the person and we just were never able to do it. So that is like an area of these, like of this committee and this entire board that I would really like to see get a little bit better. Because I tried to really connect with that person. You can just tell that they were doing it. It was like, bop, 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 bop. And then that's great, but like,
Would
I'm
it be
not in
helpful?
the bop, 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 bop.
Okay,
Like I kind of would like it to be a little bit more cohesive. And I feel
Okay.
like 2 new people doing it. It was really specific. That's why I chose the same one that I had last year so that I could actually get a better experience with doing it. I mean, don't get me wrong, the person was absolutely amazing and they did everything that they had all the skills that they needed to pull that off. But for someone who didn't, I felt like a little left out, not on purpose by that person, but just because they have been doing it so much. And I feel like, you know, I would like some of that.
Okay, why don't I do this? I'll send you, I think I have a draft of what Ozzy and I did. And let me see if I have a draft of what Jonte and I did. I'll send, if I can find them. If I do, I'll send them to you. Is that appropriate? Can I do that without violating Brown, Nicole?
Yes.
Okay, I'll send those to you. And then you let me, if you'll go through them and see if maybe we're talking about cadence, maybe that cadence would work a little better for when you set up your meetings this next time around. How's that?
I'll take a look at it, but I mean, I can ask questions. It was more of the substance of the meeting that I would like to understand a little bit better, the dynamics of what the CAB is actually supposed to be bringing. So there's a lot more to it than just like, you know, questions. And like kind of the decorum there. Those are really good things to just make sure people understand before you send them out on missions. And that was kind of my complaint last year, and it kind of still is.
I'm okay. Can
Okay.
you then give us specifics as to what train? I mean, can you be specific? How's this? Can you write down the 7 things or 5 things that we need to do or that you need? And let's see if we can provide those. How's that?
Yeah, it's not just what I need. I think anybody who is getting their toe in this kind of thing could use that, like in anything that they don't normally do on a regular basis. And if they're representing any aspect of any type of, you know, organization, like I think it's just professional to make sure that people are uniform and understand the dynamics. So I can definitely write that down for you. And
Okay, can you send those? And then what we'll make sure pardon me, I should say make sure we will attempt to craft the examples that we send out to everybody based on you feel where we were lacking last year. How's that?
yeah, that should be fine.
Okay, and
But I
then,
still have the question about, because we don't have people that have been here longer than you to partner you with. So right now,
I was with Layla. So Layla was here for, I believe, a few years, right?
yeah, Lila is still on the board. But
Mhm.
she's not doing the sheriff's office this year. She selected the Employment Human Services Department. So if
That's
you want,
fine, but I
you wanna
still
go
felt
there-
like you know, for somebody like her who's been doing this for a while, we do know that like there wasn't really a lot of pairing with newer individuals with the older individuals. So last year, one of my other complaints was that there wasn't really, you know, the people who were here before us were gone. Like we just kind of started from the bottom to learn up on our own. And so I just wanted to see that get a little bit better. I hope it makes sense.
I disagree. I think we made an effort to partner someone who's done it before.
Well, you did
Maybe not
last
the last
year.
2 years,
Last
but
year we did, but again, she was here, you know, longer than 1 year when I was with her. So right now we're, you know, Mark hasn't been here a year, and you know, I was here 1 year, and I was actually like felt like more of an observer with what was going on the last time. And again, I wasn't able to be there for the whole one because of how the schedule worked out. So
right.
I'm just,
I hear what you're saying, and we want to make sure that you're comfortable.
I want to make sure that we're all comfortable. So this isn't really just about me. This is kind of about everybody. And it was like a consistent issue that I did feel last year. So this isn't just like, oh, Nikenya doesn't feel comfortable. I just didn't feel like there was enough, there wasn't enough like knowledge being given from the people before us. And that was the experience. And that was what I kept saying.
Come over
So.
today.
Mark, do you have a question? I saw your hand up.
No, the only thing I was looking at, I mean, I can switch, be the lead for the public defender and the second for the sheriff's office, if that makes any difference.
So would you be
Excellent.
taking on a third? I'm sorry, I see what you're saying. So switching that.
Because right now I'm the only one for the public defenders.
Right.
And, but I
Okay, that's good.
I could still be with the sheriff's office and work along with Nikenya and try to be
Perfect.
thoroughly prepared.
Okay.
That's all.
Excellent. Thank you.
So that's Mark, Nikenya, and then Scott, I know you had lead for probation. Nikenya, you had lead for second for probation, was your selection too, right?
Yeah, I wanted to try that one this year.
Excellent.
And then Scott, you have Board of Supervisor 2, which I believe is Anderson, Supervisor Anderson.
Yeah. And you know, if you want to move me around, you do it. The only reason I avoided Sheriff's Department is because I was there for 29 years, and I think it would be probably beneficial for others to get a chance to roll into that environment. But I'll do whatever you like.
Okay. So I think that's all the board members on this subcommittee, Crawford, as far as, I just wanted to highlight, I know we're running out of time here, that this was kind of the first pass to see who wanted to do what for their lead and their second. And that is kind of what this matrix represents. And the columns that have orange right now, it's because we don't have two people. We definitely have some gaps here as far as partnering with two people. And part of that is some members that didn't respond. And then also we're lacking 3 alternates right now. So how do you want to proceed with this at this point, Crawford? Do you feel like it's in a place where we can bring it to the full board, or do you want to wait until our 3 alternates on board?
Why
So
don't
that
we
we
get,
can-
yeah, you know what, Nicole, let's get the 3 alternates, because that may help us, you know, fill it out a little bit as to how you can pair them up.
Okay.
And we got to really take to heart Nikenya's comments about maybe reconstructing what was constructed for us last year,
Right.
so that there's more of a comfort level for those that haven't done this before. And
Yeah.
okay.
I mean, looking at the places that have 2 people right now, like I'm seeing people that have done it before and those that haven't. So I don't know if that just happened that way, but yeah, I mean, some of these individuals have been on for less than a year. So So I guess it's just open for interpretation of how you're considering someone new versus been on the board for.
So my thing, because I was the chair of the subcommittee and recruitment last year, was retainment of individuals. And I do feel like when you, like I said, when we showed up Crawford, there was nobody from the previous time here.
That's right.
We had to basically like kind of act like we were reinventing the wheel. And I just don't see that as a very good way to retain people, ultimately. So this isn't just about like an idea. This is more of just like a practice that I think would better serve the entire board when it comes to retention of individuals. I mean,
Okay.
it's just my perspective. So that's it.
So you, let me look at we had one other agenda item, Crawford, but I don't think we're gonna get to that.
The talking points. Why don't we
Yeah.
take that to the, well, hey, this will be good. Because maybe if Nakenya gets that information to me of what she would like a script, I'll go back and pull out the stuff that Ozzy and I did, and maybe we can integrate the two and we'll have something for the talking points in a format that would be more of a comfort level to new individual. How's that? So maybe this is a win-win. Heck.
Right. Yeah, I think that the establishing the timeline part is just aligning on when you want all the subcommittees to weigh in on the talking points.
Well,
And I don't think that's really gonna honestly take that long to figure out. So we can bring this back, I guess, next
yes.
month.
And yeah, and let's be prepared to get those timelines then next month. How's that?
And then what is going to the full cab? The full cab is the PowerPoint, and diversity survey is, we're holding off on that. We're gonna review the R job presentation on surveying.
Yes.
And bring that back next month. Also, the PowerPoint will be brought to the full body in June to take a look at that. CAB program assignments will also be brought back next month, and hope to have the 3 new alternates selections, their preferences added into that matrix. Right.
Yes.
And then of
Correct.
course incorporating well, really the whole program, right? Taking Nakenya's feedback into account as we're developing these talking points. So the talking points will be brought back as well.
Okay, and Nakenya, I'm really booked. Can you get that stuff to me within a week? Because if you get it to me within a week, then I'll jump on it right away. And that'll get, if you'd be kind enough to do that, and then I can, get working on it like ASAP.
Yes. Okay.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you.
Nice.
And, one other thing, Nicole, or maybe we should do this offline. It seems to me that survey, we should take it to legal as well as HR, and maybe they could enlighten us some more.
I would definitely say that's a good idea.
Yeah, I don't have exact contact for that, but I will follow up with our office to see what the direction
Yeah.
is.
Because it seems to me the HR people can tell us very quickly, they're professionals, boom, we'll get that done. And then the legal people, more than likely the HR has been in contact with legal. So maybe we can get everything taken care of.
Yeah,
So that,
I think one question that they might have is if, depending on how the results pan out, like what action would the body be taking with this? And if it's from a recruitment standpoint, like I said, our CAB application does not ask these questions. We leave it open. So it might be something that we have to have a CAB representative, whether it's Crawford is you as the CAB chair there with ORJ, but we will follow up offline on next steps for that.
okay, but again, I think you go back to, you get all this information, that'll lead us to what we have to do, just as we did not have enough representation from West County. So what in the Sam Hill did we do?
Right.
We made a left turn or a right
Sure.
turn?
I just know with working with
Right.
county council that it's important to have an ask from them. Rather than just having a, just a random conversation, there needs to be some planning in that. So they're gonna want to know, what is it we're asking for them? What do we need? What do we need from them? So, and I don't have that in front of me right now. So we need to talk offline about that.
Okay, all right. I think we'll be in good shape. Hey, this is what we want. Is this okay? And we're gonna put the survey out. Tell us yes or no.
All right.
Yeah, I don't think that takes a lot of, I didn't know.
Well, I mean, like I share with you, they did not like that it was in the application at all. So they'll probably have more questions about this. So,
Well, then, hey, because then maybe we're on the wrong track. Let's get on the right track. I think that's okay. Hey, we're gonna educate each other. Okay, all right. Is there anything else we have left to do here?
no,
Okay, we've got next steps. And then that's it. So thank you, Mark, Nakenya, Nicole, Scott, Dale, and the lady left us. See, she dumped us. That's all right. Thank you, everybody. Hey, I know we had some conversations that are, hey, we had to go back and forth, but isn't that why we're here?
I think so.
We get better when we challenge each other. By George. So I say mission accomplished on this meeting.
Hoorah.
Thanks. Okay,
thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
bye-bye.